You've seen my post about it? You've seen the videos done by people such as History in the Dark, Andrew Alabamers, Train of Thought, and plenty others people regarding this topic? But now, it's my turn to talk about the infamous event that traumatized rail fans forever. 5629 was a K4A 462 Light Pacific manufactured and built by Alco in 1924. 462s were classified between numbers 5627 to 5631. It was the third member of its kind. Ironically, they were pretty much the exact same equivalent of the USRA 462 Pacifics with a slight modification altered to their cabs. 5629's career mostly consisted of being used on mixed traffic service, mostly used in passenger and freight service. When the Grand Trunk Western began to dieselize their railroad somewhere beyond the 1930s, the locomotive became acquired by Richard Jensen, who eventually acquired this locomotive following two other locomotives from the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy's, these numbers 5632 and 4963. He mostly used them for excursion purposes. At the time, it was 5629 that was used for passenger service up in Chicago areas, and one time he used it for a circus train event and for just 2 years. Southern enthusiast Clayton Graham caught eye on this locomotive and offered to make a deal off it, but Jensen declined, saying the locomotive isn't suited for his Southern Steam program, regardless of what he thinks. A few years later, in 1977, Richard Jensen was sent to the hospital after breaking his back upon helping one of his friends move a refrigerator of a 3-story building apartment. During his time in the hospital, he realizes his finances have completely liquidated, meaning he was unable to store his steam engines and was unable to rent any more excursion trips for 5629. During this time, however, he gave his locomotives over to the Rock Island. Get it? The Rock? Great meme, by the way. But unfortunately, by the end of March, specifically March 31st, 1980, the Rock Island was then snapped out of existence, and Metra took over. Metra took over the majority of what used to be the Rock Island, including the yard, which 5629 was idling in during the shed's demolition. Metra was going to destroy the yard and rebuild it into a car zone. Only problem was the 5629 is in its way. They couldn't move the locomotive, considering it was owned by Jensen. Upon telling Jensen agreed, but when he was preparing to do this, he discovered that a large majority of moving parts and pieces were missing, or even damaged, and then later started pointing fingers at Metra for vandalism. But then he realized he had an idea. If he 5629 sit there, do nothing, he could sue Metra and get enough money for his finances and for his hospital bills. And so it happened. It got to the point where Metra just became tired of this and just took him to a trip to court. And pretty much everyone decided the most obvious thing to do was just put it in the railroad museum, and Metra supported the majority of the ideas. But to no one's surprise, the court immediately rejected all of this regardless.
What?
Heck, the only thing the court did was just ban Jensen from the property and let Metra take matters into their own hands. But it didn't stop there, however. Jensen kept on taking out more and more parts off of the 5629, and it became more and more harder for it to move. Up until that same year, in July 1st, the court finally made their decision and told Metra to send a salvage team to go after 5629 and have the locomotive scrapped.
I can't believe people are okay.
Fun fact, it was actually the exact same scrap team who was responsible for the death of Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy's 5632 a few years prior. The salvage team arrived at the scene where 5629 was being held at, and that's when scrapping commenced. Hundreds upon thousands of rail fans saw the locomotive being brutally mutilated top to bottom until there was nothing left but a pile of scrap metal. However, many people had to be knocked off the property by police, mainly due to the fact it was considered criminal trespassing. And then all of his corpses were taken away by a truck. But little did they know that this would be a part of Jensen's plan. After this, he then proceeded to try and sue Metra like he planned, but the court immediately rejected this idea and told him to get lost. Jensen later passed away 4 years later at the age of 59 due to health issues. He also became the most despised person in the railfan industry because of his actions that led to the death of 5629. And since then, this event has traumatized railfans from the moment it first happened up until this particular point, and 2025 has been little to no different regarding that event. As for Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy's 4963, it was eventually acquired by the Illinois Railroad Museum, where eventually remains in service to this day.